everyone and welcome. This is Chloe with Cousin DIY. Today I'm going to show you how to make these boho inspired wire wrapped earrings. I'm going to get set up and I'll be right back to get started. Now that I'm set up, you'll see that I've divided my individual beads into separate little cupettes that will make them easier to work with. And I've pre-cut a 10-inch length of 20 gauge gold colored copper wire and 2 feet of 28 gauge gold copper wire. For starters, I'm going to take the 20 gauge wire. I'm going to hold one end with a pair of needle nose pliers, and I'm going to work that wire, run my fingers over it. It kind of warms the wire up and it makes it easier to work with. Okay, and I found this bottle in my medicine cabinet and I thought it was a really good size to use for this project. I'm going to use that to help shape my hoop. So I've crisscrossed the tails approximately where the tails are even. I'm going to form a couple of twists in the wire. Then I'm going to pull the wire off that bottle and I'm going to push it down flat. I'm going to take one of the wires, I think it'll be this one, I'm going to wrap it back down around the twist that I just made. Just a little part of it. And then I'm going to take my flush cutters and cut that tail off. I'll take my needle nose pliers and I just want to pinch the end of that wire so it won't be sharp, nice and snug. Okay, it's giving me a little bit of a hard time, but there we go. Next, I'm going to keep letting this, remember I want it to be flat and it won't hurt to slide it back on here at this point and back off. And now we're going to form a wrapped loop. Actually, that needs to be a little more snug. Next, I'm going to keep wrapping this wire around underneath this loop that we formed. Now I'm going to trim that tail as flush as possible. And pinch that tail end so there's no sharp ends. This will be the front of my loop. Once again, I'm going to pull it down over this bottle And I want my loop to be a little bit elongated, like an exaggerated or a abbreviated teardrop, I guess you'd say. More like this one. So to do that, I'm just going to pull and pinch in here a little bit more until I get the desired effect. There, I'm pretty happy with that. Next, we'll start with our 2-foot length of 28 gauge wire. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to work it through my fingers. And we're going to start by adding our first row of beads, like this earring. And to do that, I'm going to take one end of this length of wire and I'm going to wrap that tail, oh, let's say like 5 maybe or 4 to 6 times. This will get easier as we start building rows. The first row is one of the trickiest because it still wants to slide on the base of the hoop. So I'm not going to trim that tail yet in case I need to make some adjustments, but I am going to add my first row of beads, and that will be 2 4mm, which are the smaller AB bicones, and one of these gold sparkle beads. So we'll add one of the AB bicones, a gold sparkle, and another 4mm AB bicone. Now I want this to be centered below the loop as much as possible and have a slight curve in it. You want to make sure that you don't get any kinks in this thin 28 gauge wire. So when you pull it, just make sure that there's no kinks in it. Okay. Give that a couple more wraps and it's looking good. And it can be handy. I'd like my wire wraps to be nice and snug, so I can use my needle nose pliers to squish those wires together. Next, we're going to add the next row, which is going to be these little tan, where are they? Little light tan E-beads. They're kind of a matte finish. And each time you add a row of beads, you want to make sure you have enough wire so that that row of beads will rest above the previous row of beads. Now E-beads they can vary in size and shape a little bit, so the number of beads may vary a little bit. What is important is that the length of beads will be consistent from one earring to the next, or the length of the strand. We'll just keep adding until we're happy with how that next strand lays above the previous strand. And I think we're going to put one more bead. Still one more little one there. So at this point, we want to make sure that we're going to wrap this wire once again around the base of the hoop on the other side, constantly checking. Now, at this point, I think I'm going to I wrapped around to the right of that row of beads, and now I'm just going to go back one and go to the left of that and see if that won't help anchor. I want to make sure I don't get any kinks. Pull that nice and snug. And then I'll continue wrapping off to the right. We'll wrap around one more time, and then I'm just going to keep adding rows of different beads and combinations of beads, going back and forth, side to side. And you could use your own design, you don't have to follow mine. But the one thing you want to remember is, for example, the transition between this row, which is rather narrow compared to the beads in this row. You want to make sure that you wrap far enough out before you start that row that they won't be right on top of this row. So I'm just going to keep on going. Going to go ahead and trim that wire, and once again I'm going to pinch it off to make sure there's no sharp edge, and then I'm just going to wrap this tail that I started with one more time around the base of the hoop and trim that off as well. You don't need flush cutters, you can just use wire cutters, but the flush cutters are nice because they allow you to cut right flush up against the beads. Okay, and the next step is we're going to make a beaded link to attach to the top. So here's a gold eye pin. I just straightened out the stem because it was a little crooked. And to this I'm going to add, you can create your own pattern, but I'm going to put a 4mm AB bicone, a large sparkly gold bead, and a bronze E-bead. And I don't have a cheater bead with me, so I'm just going to guess, oh, maybe about that length. And we're going to use our round nose pliers to make a loop on the other end. We're going to open up the loop on this side and attach it to the top, the loop at the top of the hoop. And last but not least, we're going to ear wires are stuck together. Okay. Oh, and I want my earring. To hang forward. So I'm going to twist this bottom loop so it's facing the other direction. There's a little trick. Okay, I want it to face sideways like that. Put the loop on the bottom of the ear wire through that top loop. And this coil slid up a bit. There. There we have it. I'm going to go ahead and make the matching earring and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try these on. They actually kind of go with my top today. You can create your own patterns with all the beads you have to work with. You don't have to make yours exactly like I made mine, but as you can see, they're not difficult. It just takes a little bit of patience. There you go. What do you think? If you make your own wired earrings, we'd love to see them. Please share them with us on Instagram at #CreateWithCousin. Thanks for joining us today. Till next time, bye.